houses and 58 townhomes, Mason Point.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And as a matter of our schedule to the board, our next public meeting is February the 25th, and then after that, it's March 11th. Tonight, under current business, as you can see, we won't be taking action. We're awaiting the usual and standard other information, and it's always good on a project of the Mason Point size to kind of go through it a little bit en masse. So we don't have an exact date as to when we'll do it, but we'll certainly make that public. And then the meeting after that is March the 9th. I'm sorry, the budget workshop is March the 9th, and that is open to the public. That is a Saturday, and that's where we'll go over our department head's presentation on the budget. So reminding the public about March 9th as well. With that, item number 4 on our agenda, public comments regarding items that are on our agenda this evening. Item 5, consent agenda and vote.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Holder, Trustee Kotinik. It's been moved and seconded. Discussions or comments on the motion?
I have a couple of questions.
Trustee Holder.
The Edgewood Avenue reconstruction project, Brian, is that going to include all of Edgewood, all the way to 55th Street?
It will only be within the village limits from the hospital to 47th.
From the hospital to 47th. Is somebody else taking care of the rest of it, or, you know, is like this in conjunction with some authority so that it's a through street and bike trails, et cetera, is some of the things we've talked about?
Yes, so that was one of the original concepts for Edgewood Avenue, was that we had partnered with the Lyons Township Roadway District to have a joint application to designate Edgewood Avenue as an FAU route. Unfortunately, that application was denied. However, though, we do anticipate that any design elements such as a bike path would be coordinated with them as part of our process.
It was denied because it's not a wide enough street to be considered, right?
That was one of the considerations, was limited right-of-way width. Other factors included the volume of traffic, as well as the number of driveways, as well as stop signs that exist along the roadway.
Gotcha. So I was going to ask, so in the reconstruction, if we made it wide enough, wouldn't it be? But the answer is no. It still wouldn't qualify. Okay. Second question, also to you, Ryan. For the redoing the parking lot, it says in here that the agreement with the village includes our agreement to install signage detailing the benefits of green infrastructure and partnership between the village and the MWRD. What kind of signage are we talking about, and how large, and give me a feel? Is it a little placard, or is it Gigunda?
Somewhere probably in between. It's a identification that's required as part of our grant receipt, that we talk about the benefits of green infrastructure and identify our partnership with MWRD as part of the project. It would be a sign that will be contextual with the lot and won't overshadow what's there now.
Because there's a wayfinding sign there now that we don't want to compete with, right?
Right. We haven't figured out the exact location or the language of the sign. It's just a requirement that they have in terms of identifying the partnership.
Okay. And then last question is on the flowers. I don't know who to ask that of. But we only got one quote. I mean, is that because people don't like our flowers, or? Oh, it is still you, Ryan? Sorry.
So
You're
generally,
all things to all people.
Generally, the flowers that we select are, we have the Grange Garden Club helps us in the design of those flowers. A lot of times, the flowers and other plant material that we're selecting is fairly unique, and it requires a vendor to actually grow the flowers and have them be specific for LaGrange. So it's not just a matter of buying the flowers, but it's also finding a grower. In the past, we've gotten 2 to 3 quotes. This year, unfortunately, we were only able to get one vendor to provide us a quote. However, though, I will note that these prices are almost the same as they were last year and are under budget for the project.
Yeah, I noted that. Okay, thank you. I thought maybe we were doing something strange that people didn't like us or something. But the LaGrange petunia will look beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Holder. Other questions, comments on the motion? All right. Seeing none, Mr. Clerk, roll call vote.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee Katina.
Aye.
Trustee Kukler.
Aye.
Trustee McCarty.
Aye.
Trustee Holder.
Aye?
With that, the motion passes. Item number 6, current business. Item A, consideration of an application by MI Homes Chicago LLC for development of the property known as 441 9th Avenue with 12 single-family houses and 58 townhomes, Mason Point. Refer to Trustee Holder.
Thank you. MI Homes is the contract purchaser of the former Masonic Children's Home property on 9th Avenue. MI Homes is a nationally known, publicly traded corporation that develops developments, mostly single-family homes and townhomes. The proposed development, as you heard the clerk mention, is 12 single-family detached houses along 9th Avenue, 58 townhomes that are carved into 12 buildings, and also on that property, a naturalized stormwater management facility on the eastern side of it, private streets throughout the development, which is unusual for us because usually we want them to be public streets. These will be private. And landscaped areas that include 2 courtyards and pedestrian walking paths. The landscaped area, stormwater management facility, and the streets are proposed to be owned and maintained by a homeowners association, an HOA, usually referred to, and a development agreement between the village and the applicant will govern the maintenance requirements for the infrastructure that will be privately owned and include provisions for a special service area to fund future maintenance just in case the HOA falls down on their responsibilities, in our view. The zoning approvals sought, or that will be sought, include an amendment to Section 14-501 of the zoning code to allow planned developments in a single-family residential district, an amendment to the zoning map from 1B institutional buildings to R4 single-family residential district and R6 two-family residential district, a final plan development, a special use permit, site plan approval, and a final plot of subdivision. The applicant's been invited to present this evening and is here with us, and a description of the proposed development is here in our packet and is also posted online. This memo is also designed to provide background information on the application and a summary of the proposed development. I'm going to spare reading some amounts of this since I don't need to take you through the Masonic children, etc. The application has been with us since we hosted a pre-application meeting on July 30th. And at that time, the applicant got comments from the village staff and some of us trustees and some of the plan commissioners. The applicant filed their formal application on September 7 and has gone through the plan commission process now with 2 hearings and passed through the plan commission with a unanimous recommendation to the village board. The development as proposed does not meet some of our zoning standards, and here in our packet are an outline of the modifications being requested by the applicant. The zoning code provisions regarding plan developments allow modifications under certain circumstances, and this table takes us through that. The village board does have the authority to grant the requested modifications under the plan development provisions of the zoning code. The question is, should we? Plan commission proceedings occurred on December 11, and they made a bunch of recommendations at the public hearing session. A number of residents, 13 to be precise, testified regarding the application, raised some concerns, and then the applicant took that and made some changes to the plan and came back on January 8th to look to present their revised plan, which is very similar to what we have here in front of us. The Plan Commission determined that the additional exhibits resolved their concerns related to the density and arrangement of the proposed townhomes, given that the proposed development meets the zoning code requirements of minimum lot area per unit. Additionally, representatives of the school districts attended and expressed confidence that there would be no issue with regard to the additional students to be absorbed. Plan Commission remained concerned with the bulk of the proposed single-family homes, and we have a bunch of verbiage here that tells us why the coverage is not considered all that bad. That's a little license on my part. After conclusion of the public testimony and discussion, the Plan Commission deliberated and, as I said, passed it unanimously with 6 conditions: that the applicant revise the proposed single-family houses to meet R4 maximum building coverage without changing the proposed front elevations of the houses, that they would revise the engineering plans per the outstanding comments from the village engineer and the consulting engineers, and that the applicant would revise the landscaping plans per the outstanding comments from the consulting landscape architect's comments, also made at that December meeting. That the applicant will comply with staff recommendations for anti-monotony standards for the single-family homes. So specifically, no particular architectural style can be located within 2 lots of the same one, and no model or architectural style combination can be used more than 3 times overall. The applicant updated all their plans as necessary to reflect a mid-block access onto 9th Avenue, which was one of the recommendations, utilizing the 2-way traffic design as presented. And the 6th item is that the percentage of townhome units that may be leased will be restricted. The Plan Commission recommends further analysis by the village to determine what that number should be as part of our deliberations. So in response to that, the applicant submitted revised plans, which are our packet here today, and that he's going to review with us, and achieved most everything that the Plan Commission requested, including the building coverage reductions through a combination of decreasing the sizes of the proposed homes and a 1-foot increase in the proposed lot widths from 50 to 51 feet. They updated the rest of the plans to address the remaining conditions of the Plan Commission, and their stated intent is to comply with all village engineering, landscaping, stormwater management, and other requirements. So the review of these plans is ongoing, which is why we're just going to have a presentation this evening and not take action, and will be completed prior to the application finally appearing before us at a subsequent meeting, as Tom outlined. So during this time, the staff is also working with the applicant to finalize all the other development requirements, including the development agreement, appropriate ordinances, calculation of fees, pursuant to both subdivision and zoning code requirements. So attached here are all, we've got buku documents, and at this time, I would invite, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but the representative of MI Homes, I assume, to run through with us this grand new vision for the former Masonic Children's Home. Is it on? Nope.
Good evening.
Thank you, Milo.
Yes.
There we
Good
go.
evening. Hi, my name is Matt Pagoria. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisitions for MI Homes. Thank you for having me here this evening. MI is the contract purchaser of the parcel currently used by the Illinois Masonic Children's Home. Before we get into the plans, I'd like to just take a couple minutes and tell you a little bit about MI Homes. Maybe. Sorry. As previously mentioned, MI Homes is a publicly traded company. We have headquarters in Columbus, Ohio. And we were originally founded in 1976 by Mel and Irving Schottenstein. And in the last 40 years, we have constructed over 100,000 homes in 16 different markets. We came to Chicago in about 2008. We currently have over 22 communities across the Chicagoland area, and we typically add about 8 to 10 new communities a year. Right now, we are ranked number 3 in the Chicagoland area in terms of total sales. Last year, we sold over 400 homes, and assume that this year and going forward, that number would increase. The subject property is the Illinois Masonic site. It's about 9 acres. It's located on the north side of 47th Street between 9th Avenue and Bluff Avenue, just south of the Meadowbrook Manor. Again, as when we first came to LaGrange last summer, one of the first things that staff told us was maintain the character of LaGrange in your plans. So we started out with some plans, had numerous revisions from then until now. We have revised the plan to lower the overall units. We've increased the open space areas, increased the amount of open space features that we've had. We've relocated the access on 9th. We've also revised our proposed architectural plans, increased the quality of the materials, added more detailing, and also added front porches to all of our single-family homes, which you'll see here in a minute. The current plan is for 12 single-family lots along 9th Avenue. To maintain that character of LaGrange, what we did was mimic the existing single-family homes that are on the west side of 9th Avenue. So we are proposing similar lot sizes as to the homes that are existing. To the east, transitioning from the single-family lots to what would be the higher intensity uses along Bluff Avenue is where we have our 58 townhome units. We currently have 3 points of access to the site, 2 on Bluff Avenue and 1 on 9th Avenue. We have, as mentioned, relocated that 9th Avenue access point. It was originally located just to the north of what is single-family lot 12. So our original plans had that along our northern property line. After conversations with the Plan Commission, we've moved that further south. We believe that creates a better intersection at that northwest corner. The entire site, if you've been by there, there is a transition in grade from the west to the east. So all of our stormwater management is located along our eastern property line, along Bluff. The detention is designed in accordance with, village and county regulations. It is a naturalized stormwater management facility. You'll see some pictures here in a minute. What that means is there's a naturalized plantings that will be predominant across that area. There will be some water surface. The water will drain to that area. The naturalized plants help to filter the water as it transitions through our site and then leaves at what is a dramatically less rate than it would typically if there was not a stormwater management facility. These are just kind of an example of our courtyard areas. On the left-hand side, those are two of our townhome buildings, the front elevations. And again, you'll see those elevations in a minute. Those two buildings are placed to create a courtyard. As you can see, what we've done is created sidewalks that go through there. There is a kind of passive open lawn in the center. And then what we've also done is at what would be almost the four corners of that oval, we have created little seating areas. These can be used by not only the residents of our community, but also anyone that is going through, anyone that's going through the site on the sidewalks. This shows you an example in the upper left-hand corner of one of our seating areas that we've located along that stormwater management facility. So one of the things we've done is we've created public walk that will connect to 9th, Bluff, and 47th. And as it enters the stormwater management area, this seating area is perched so that someone could come there and overlook that stormwater management area. On the right side of the sheet shows you kind of a detail of our proposed signage. Again, on the site plan, we're assuming that the main entrance to this site is the southernmost access point off of Bluff. So what we've done to kind of emphasize that, we've added the entrance signage at that location, and we've also increased the width of that roadway that you'll see there. I think we reference it as roadway A. We've increased the cross-section of that. It is similar now pavement-wise to what a public roadway would be, to make that feel like it's the predominant entrance. So along that roadway, we also have parking on both sides of the street. In addition to the parking along roadway A, we've also created several locations of off-street parking to help serve the, basically help serve this community. So all of our homes, both single-family and townhomes, they all have two-car garages. And the townhomes, which we call rear-loaded, all of the rear elevations kind of create a courtyard. Besides the two-car garage, there is also, kind of hard to see, but outside of your garage, you would have what would be similar to your driveway at home, and it would be long enough to fit two cars outside of your garage before you hit the kind of shared drive between those two buildings. We talked about the stormwater management facility being a naturalized basin. Some of these pictures here are of other facilities that we've done in the Chicagoland area. Every community that we build in right now is we're required to construct one of these naturalized basins. So this gives you an idea of what that will look like after a year or so. This is a cross-section showing you on the left the existing homes on 9th Avenue. This is 9th Avenue, then showing you our proposed single-family homes. And this is meant to show you the relationship as you were on 9th Avenue between the two single-family homes, maintaining that similar bulk standard height-wise. And then obviously as we move further east and transition to a little higher intensity, you can see the townhomes over here on the right. This is a depiction of our townhome unit along that northern property line, how it abuts the Meadowbrook Manor. So you can see this is just kind of show you the height difference of our townhomes in comparison to the existing Meadowbrook Manor. And then to kind of help get the overall feel, we created this perspective that is looking northwest onto the site. You can see this is 47th Bluff to the right and 9th to the left, and then obviously Meadowbrook Manor in the back. So this gives you a good idea of scale on that stormwater management facility along that eastern property line, and kind of the view that you'll have as you enter LaGrange on 47th in this area. Again, just to touch on the single family real quick, 12 single family lots, similar lot size to what is to the east at 9th, based on some Plan Commission recommendation on bulk, the building coverage. In trying to reduce that overall building coverage, what we've done is we've added a foot to the width of all these lots. So you'll see the overall square footage now is 7,395 square feet versus the 7,250 that's on the east side of the street, or the west side of the street, sorry. This is just a detail kind of showing you how our single-family homes live. What you probably saw on the plan is all of our single-family homes are what we would call neo-traditional. They're all rear-loaded. So none of our homes will have a driveway onto 9th Avenue. There won't have any garage doors on 9th Avenue or driveways. So all the driveways basically front off of one of our private drives to the east. So this is showing you along 9th Avenue, which would be the bottom of the page, all of the homes have a 35-foot front yard setback. Again, you'll see no driveways or garages. This shows you how each of our different plans, Plan 1, 2, and 3, how they kind of fit on that lot. So as these homes are built next to each other, this gives you a good idea of spacing. And you can see based on the dimensions of our single-family homes, you end up with anywhere from a 20-foot to a 25-foot depth on your driveway. So in addition to that 2-car garage, obviously you'll also have room in your driveway to park vehicles. One of the single-family homes, what we've done is we have 3 different single-family homes, all based around 3 different architectural styles. So we have a traditional, an urban farmhouse, and a craftsman. So all 3 of our plans have one elevation in each of those styles. So that would help in our anti-monotony as far as not locating homes or styles next to each other. So the first plan is 2,788 square feet. It's a 3-bedroom with a loft, 2.5 bathrooms, has a 4-bedroom option on it. Plan 2 is just over 3,100 square feet. It's a 4-bed, 2.5 bath plan. As you can see here, the colored elevation is what would be the urban farmhouse. Just for reference, the front porches are about 8 foot in depth. So these are actual livable front porches. The third plan, as you can see, is the craftsman style. This third plan is a little over 3,300 square feet. It's 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Again, all 2-car garages. We also have options on all of these plans that would allow for in-law suites, upgraded master bathrooms, possibly Jack and Jill baths off of the 3rd and 4th bedrooms upstairs. The townhome section. Again, we have 58 townhome units. This is a private roadway that goes through here. These are rear-loaded units. So as you enter the site off of Bluff, these two buildings here, what you see is the front elevation, which is this. The rear elevation, which creates the courtyards, is seen here. This is a 3-story elevation in the rear, 2.5-story elevation in the front. They all have 2-car garages. The key lot buildings, which are located adjacent to the single-family homes, would also have additions to the rears of those buildings, variation in the garage door styling. There's added coach lights, as well as some trellises above the patio doors off of those second-story decks, just to help kind of blend that together with some of the single-family lots, which will be directly across from that private roadway. In the townhome section, we offer 3 different floor plans. The first one is a little over 1,800 square feet. It's 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath. All of our townhome units are going to be 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath with an optional 3rd bedroom. Again, as you can see here, you enter through the garage and 2-car garage into kind of a bonus room. You then have your staircase that leads up to the main level, which has your great room, family room, kitchen, and then the bedrooms all happen on the 3rd floor. So as you enter the building through the front, you have a mild walk up into that 1st floor, which again has most of your living space. The second unit is our Clark, which is just over 1,900 square feet. Again, 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath with a 3-bed option. And then our largest unit is the Cardiff plan, and that's just over 2,200 square feet. As was previously mentioned in the Plan Commission meeting, one of the recommendations was to recommend approval without any sort of variation on the building coverage. At that meeting, we talked to the Plan Commission about going back, working with our architects to see what it is that we could do to our single-family plans to limit that request on the building coverage. We had submitted a kind of an exhibit where we were able to take some square footage out of all the different areas of that home. We were able to reduce, originally at the Plan Commission, we had requested a building coverage on those interior lots. Instead of 30%, we requested 39.7%. We were able to make some changes to those plans. We were able to get that 39.7 down to 36.6. Again, that 36 is just on the largest units. The other recommendations were we're going to meet the engineer's comments and the landscape architect's comments, and obviously we'll work with staff to finalize those plans before we see you again. And one of the other items was we'll work with you on limiting the number of rentals in the community. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
Trustee Holder, any other things you want to say? You did a very good job condensing a lot of things, both you and Matt, so we appreciate that.
Yes, no, not at this time. And thank you for your thoroughness and for the nice exhibits. Appreciate it. And thank you for your interest in LaGrange. You guys have put a lot of work into this, and I've been very impressed at your willingness to take the feedback and come back to the next meeting and make those changes. And I understand it's a give and take, and so we appreciate you hanging in there and continuing to work with us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Holder. At this point, in a moment, I'm going to open it up for questions and comments, and then we can, I'd like to maybe decide as a board by the end of the week when we think we might consider this, so we can let those from the public know, be either on the 25th or the following week. Just very briefly, and don't go far, Matt, because we may have questions. This is not our first touch on this property. We have been very keen on the details. We've been in pre-meetings. We get all the transmittals of the Plan Commission. We've gotten very good feedback from the public. I think I would also acknowledge the Masons. We've had a long run with the Masons in LaGrange on that property, and they did some good things there. And quite frankly, I'm going to miss it. We didn't set out to change the world on that property, and so we certainly embrace what they did there for a long time, and we then see this as a careful opportunity. And I know the village board, as excited as we are about new neighbors, and we are, the people that we really want to focus on are the residents that are there now, across the street on 9th Avenue. They clearly, as I looked at this over time, are the priority. They have chosen LaGrange. They have invested in LaGrange. And so I think we owe them appreciation because they've helped shape this as we consider this final project. And we're all pretty good at planned developments. We've seen a few of these large trapezoidal properties. They're different in shape and scale and size, so we will again take that careful opportunity to review it. And obviously, we're very pleased that you, MI, have chosen to invest in LaGrange. We don't take that for granted either. I noted in your presentation you chose to come to the Chicago area in 2008. That had to be interesting timing as to what happened after that in the housing market. But we're glad you have continued with us, and we're pretty selective, and I know you're selective too, so we'll have questions along the way. But why don't I be quiet and open it up for comments and questions from the board as we take this first look at the village board level. Trustee Kutinek.
Thanks, Mr. President. Matt, thanks for your presentation. It's helpful. Maybe just to kick off the questions, can you maybe start out by identifying the price points in the range of the houses and townhomes that you would initially seek?
Sure. Again, when we took a look at this property, we felt we wanted to try and cast a wide net on the market. Hence, the two different product lines kind of give us the best ability to attack all the different price points. So, again, with the townhomes, we range in size from like 1,800 to 2,300. And then the single family then picks back up at about 2,800 to 3,400. So really, with this project, we span 1,800 square feet all the way up to 3,400 square feet. So we believe the townhomes are probably going to price somewhere in the 400s, and the single family are going to price somewhere in the 600s. And obviously that doesn't take into full consideration what someone may do as far as increasing their home value.
Great. Actually, and then if I may, this won't be my final question, but I'll leave some others questions for the others. I know you had some meetings with the school districts. Can you talk a little bit of the impact it would have to the local schools? How many children you would anticipate, being added to the various grade levels, and maybe just a high-level assessment of what you heard back from your study there?
Don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but I can get them in 1 second. I know that we had, through staff, hired on a fiscal impact analysis was done. I think it was Kane McKenna, and they used the state tables to run population projections. And then I know that staff has had conversations directly with the school district. I have not. They did attend the last meeting and made public comments to the fact that this would not have a negative impact on their schools.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kutinek. Any? Trustee Kukler? Trustee Kukler.
Thanks again, Matt, for coming. I know that you talked about some of the walkways and things that are through the development, though with the number of townhouses, I'm looking at, and I know it's proximity to Sedgwick Park, so there's some idea, well, we have green space across the street. But for dog walking and things like that, where do you see that occurring?
I'm going to try and flip back to an overhead shot of this. So typically what we would see is the residents here, no different than the existing residents of LaGrange to the east or west. They're going to utilize the on-site sidewalks for walking. We provide this stormwater management facility area that has sidewalks that go down bluff, fully encompass this, so it kind of gives you a little bit of a walking path there. We also have sidewalks that lead from this seating area west to 9th Avenue. And then we also have connections along 47th into some of our courtyards or into this sidewalk again that makes this circle here. We envision that the residents here will utilize those sidewalks as well as the existing sidewalks along 9th Avenue walking into town.
Well, for walking their dog purposes, are they going to be encouraged then to use the courtyards, or where are they going to be encouraged to walk their dogs?
Yeah, typically, I mean, the townhome people would use the open space areas in the courtyards or along or around the pond.
So around the pond, how much, when it's wet, when there's water in there, how much ground is going to be not underwater?
You can see the sidewalk that's right here is all high and dry. The water is really just in the lower portions of that detention facility. So it's not like a lake where the water kind of comes up. It may fluctuate a little bit, but you'll always kind of see the vegetation. So what you see here in that green, you really end up with water in the central areas, kind of like deep pockets of water. It's not a water surface. So at no point in time will the sidewalks around the pond be inundated with water.
And where will the water go from those detention areas?
Right now, the site currently drains, everything drains to the southeast. So what we're required to do is detain all of the stormwater that hits our site and release it at a slower rate. So the outfall for this site is still at the southeast corner. It's just we're doing it at a much slower rate because we're holding it in these ponds, and then we're releasing it at a restricted rate.
Will it have one specific area that's releasing into a sewer, or will it just be releasing into the roadway? Or
It releases into an existing sewer there.
I'm a little confused, moving to a different topic, on how the assessments will work between the single-family homes and the townhouses and things like that.
The way this would be set up, and how we typically do it in most of our communities, we will have a master association, and then there will be a townhome association. The single-family lots are going to act like a traditional single-family lot. You shovel your driveway and you mow your yard. The townhome area has full maintenance taken care of. So they will have a company that will do all the snow removal, do all the mowing and stuff. So the townhomes, for the most part, they pay the lion's share of that assessment. Single family would have a nominal amount, which would kick into kind of a proportionate share of the pond or the private roads. It could be, I'm just throwing, don't hold me, it could be $50 a month for the single family. It could be $250 for the townhomes.
With the townhouses, what's like are the roofs going to be the homeowner's responsibility or the association's responsibility, the windows and things like that?
Typically, the way we do this is all of the building what you could call from the walls out are insured and controlled, replaced, repaired by the association. Those individual homeowners then take, kind of like a condo policy, they take everything from the walls in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kukler. Trustee McCarty.
Thank you, President Livingston. Thank you also, Matt. Great presentation. I think there's some really wonderful thoughts here. Couple of questions. You're showing a new sidewalk on 47th. Has that been integrated with the plans that IDOT has for East and 47th and sidewalks and things like that? Have you guys looked at that at all?
Yes, we've had the plans for 47th. We've met and talked to IDOT. The old plans kind of envisioned a carriage walk, and there was going to be some retaining wall that kind of went along 47th Street. Based on the way we were able to kind of design this site, we were able to grade it such that we eliminated the retaining wall along 47th, and now we're able to construct a sidewalk, what I'll call your traditional sidewalk. So you'll have 47th, little parkway, and then a 5-foot sidewalk, instead of having 47th and a carriage walk.
Are you actually showing a parkway on this one, or is it right to the curb?
It's probably
Looks like it's
pretty
right
hard
to the
see.
curb, but, okay. It is those are private drives, and they'll remain private drives, and this will remain the property of the association?
Correct.
How can we be assured you'll never gate the community or something like that? Can we be assured that you'll never gate the community?
That I'll never gate it?
Mm-hmm.
I
Put
don't
fences
know.
up.
I don't know that you would let me.
Can we restrict that, and have we? Is that part of it?
The village has not needed to impose that kind of covenant on any recent development, but it can be imposed.
Okay. Then likewise, would our village overnight parking, does that matter? Do we care? They're not village streets. Could residents park on there, or could the homeowners association say you can park on them?
We had some conversations about that. The applicant has indicated a willingness to make the parking regulations on those private streets match what we have on the village streets. The only street that would have any on-street parking would be that Road A to the south. And we can also have a conversation with the applicant about a separate agreement with the police department for enforcement purposes.
Okay. You mentioned stormwater and in the stormwater detention area, and then you separately mentioned the single-family homes. Right now, every single-family home has to be individually, the civil engineering has to be resolved so that nothing runs off the side. Would that still be enforced here?
I don't know if maybe that's better for me to answer or for Ryan, but there is a master engineering plan for the entirety of the site that manages the stormwater runoff, and beyond that, I'll leave any detailed answers to Ryan.
That's correct. The detention ponds are sized to accommodate the runoff from the single-family homes.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're about 6% over the maximum building area. Is that correct?
On the largest plan, yes.
Yep.
By that real quick, I think Matt misspoke in his presentation. If you look in the staff memo, that 36% was actually where they stood at January. The most recently revised plans that are incorporated into your packet have building coverages ranging from 30.56 to 33.9%.
Okay, great. Thanks. What about the impervious area? Because we have a separate measurement for that, right?
That's
Correct?
lot coverage, and they meet the maximum lot coverage requirements. They're within those parameters.
Okay. So someone builds a property already over the limit. How do we ensure that the next resident doesn't come to us and say, I want a back porch, or I want a doghouse, or I want to increase my my kitchen by 2 square feet? Can we restrict the deeds? Can we make them announce this? How can we, is there some controls we could put on that?
There are controls that could be imposed on it, but this would go through the traditional application process. It would not receive permission or a building permit to undertake that kind of additional construction if it is in violation of a zoning code standard, and would have to go through the standard process of a variation or other relief before the village would allow it to occur.
So, 3 or 4 months ago, we had a case from a couple that bought a house that was built at the maximum, and they did not know it. So they didn't find out that they couldn't put a porch on their house until they actually came to the village. That seems like, given that they are so high, there might be some way we could address that so that we don't have sort of truth in advertising kind of concept for consideration.
I can respond just briefly to that. It is, although not particularly common, it is not by any means uncommon to have a piece that you give to potential buyers that explain those kinds of things. So it is possible to create a document like that and to require it to be shown a full disclosure of what a buyer might be buying into.
Walk me through a little bit on the logic in the rear facing, because at first I looked at it and thought it was perhaps clever, but in thinking as I'm driving down that street, it's not really matching what's across the street, and it effectively pushes those houses much closer together than if they were a detached garage with the front loading. So what's either from your marketing standpoint or your design standpoint, what's the logic on that? Help me understand that a little bit.
One of the things we wanted to do in working with staff, one of the first things was all of the homes have that front porch. And then secondly, we weren't too keen on the idea of detaching the garages. So what we thought was a good move was to have an attached garage. Front porches and attached garages kind of drove us to having this rear load product. So instead of having a traditional home with your garage front facing, we thought it would be a good idea to just flip it, utilize the private roads that we were creating. That way we're able to attach the garages, and at the same time along 9th, there's a benefit in the fact that we don't have driveways that go out to 9th. One of the main benefits is there's a combined sewer on 9th Avenue that not only handles your sanitary but your stormwater. So by removing all of that, directing our stormwater to the east, we're able to eliminate the connections to that combined sewer. So now along 9th Avenue, you have 35 feet of open space and everything drains to the east. And at the same time, we were able to reduce the amount of flow into that combined sewer.
Is it safe to say that a big component that's driving you over the buildable area is that connector link between the garage and the main house?
Yeah, it definitely doesn't help.
So would one possible answer be to detach the garage and actually move it further back on the lot and create more backyard too? And eliminate that overbuilding problem?
That is definitely a solution, yes.
Okay, good, thanks. Our current village code reads that you're not allowed to measure the house from the finished grade, but from the current grade. Could you walk us through why we have that a little bit, Charity?
So the majority of development that we see, single-family residential development particularly, is individual lot infill development, whereby if a developer, a builder, were able to measure from finished grade instead of existing grade, they could mound up the grade around the home so that the home would be taller than the other homes around. on either side of the lot. This site is a little bit different, given that it's a 9-acre site. They'll be doing mass grading that creates some administrative challenges on the building department side when they go to review individual permit plans to match up where structure would have been on the existing grade versus the finished grade.
That's correct, and I would add to that when you raise a site and do mass grading, the concept of original grade versus final grade, it diminished.
And then I guess it also ties into what Ryan was saying about the stormwater now has all been calculated based on this rough grading and the houses going on that. I couldn't tell specifically from the plans. We're not mounding up around these houses to cheat the grade, calling it a new finished grade, right? We do have a fairly level grade at the houses.
Correct. The average finished grade for the 12 single-family lots sits, I believe, approximately 2 feet higher than existing grade, but even given that, in the table in your staff memo, it notes the heights of the proposed single-family homes, and it would be within the maximums that are allowed within the R4 district. On the townhome portion of the site, we took a look at the finished grade versus the existing grade, and there are some deviations, fluctuations throughout, but no more than a foot or two.
Great. So one final thing I'd like to pursue a little bit is an understanding of, one, the need for a road out onto 9th Avenue, and also any discussions or any consideration to working better with Meadowbrook to create just a single drive where both those developments could come out, share parking, share overflow parking, that kind of thing. It seems like the parking day parts would work together nicely, that your people are going to be parking mostly on weekends and evenings, and Meadowbrook parks mostly in the daytime for their stuff. Any thought? Is it possible? I mean, it would really be nice, and it would save a lot of trouble. And I don't know how many million you're spending on this, but to give consideration to reconstructing the former easement and creating a better solution for everybody. Is that a possibility out there?
I did reach out to Meadowbrook Manor and suggested that option. They have not expressed any interest. We can certainly revisit that question with them again. I'll leave it to the applicant to say whether he would be interested in pursuing that sort of a scenario.
At this point in time, I would prefer not to go down the route of redoing that northern property line. I'd like to proceed kind of as is.
And then talk to me a little bit about why we need a road out onto 9th. You've got 2 access out to Bluff. Is there a police and fire or a fire issue, Don, with having access out to 9th?
No, there's not a fire issue per se. We have other subdivisions pretty much the same way. It'd be nice to have that drive off of 9th Avenue. One of my interests is, addressing for these townhomes. That might be a real issue for us, just getting to them and having 2 ways to get there instead of having to come around to Bluff, which is unnatural for us, for taking the most direct route.
How about from the developer standpoint? What's your feeling on that? Because it takes up space. I think the single family space is pretty valuable to you. So how about a little background on that?
I mean, from the beginning, we've always had a conversation with staff about having some sort of access onto 9th. A lot of it based around emergency services. Not to mention, it kind of helps the traffic flow in the area. So I don't know that I'm for or against it. I think it's a benefit to the existing residents to have some sort of access point onto 9th.
And it's a total of 64?
70 units.
70 units. So potential of 70 cars a day or 140 cars a day coming and going. Okay. That's my questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Trustee McCarty. Let me back up on a couple of things. Charity, let's talk about, Andre mentioned you might have the school information that Trustee Kotinik was asking about, and then I want to ask you about the detached garage process
Sure.
question.
I did have the school information, and then
See, I
turned
put
the
you on the
page.
spot. Sorry about
No,
that.
that's fine. The Kane McKenna analysis projects that upon completion, the development will result in 22 students to District 102 and 8 students to District 204.
Okay.
But Charity, can you read what there was when it was the Mason homes? I
Sure.
think it's
When
called.
the Masonic Children's Home was in operation, they generated anywhere between 2 and 10 students annually to District 102 and 10 to 14 students to District 204. So there was not an absence of students previously.
Right, okay. Trustee McCarty raised the idea of the detached garage, and Matt didn't immediately pass out and faint. So, some of these things trustees are going to be in agreement with each other on. Some of them we're not. We'll exercise that discussion as we go along. But we need to get on top of that pretty soon. I would consider that a pretty major change. So I guess I might press upon you, Trustee McCarty, to get with Charity and Matt and take a finer point on that. And if it's not to be, fine. If it is to be, we'll need to communicate that back to the board pretty quickly. And it might not be a big deal, and it might be. So I'm just trying to keep the process fact-based and moving. Okay? Trustee Holder.
A few questions, or do you just have a quick one, Mark?
No, go ahead and
Oh, all
I'll
right.
follow you.
And with regard to, since we were just on the topic of the garages, I got to agree with Trustee McCarty that I love the fact that these are standard size lots and they face across the street and they look like they're part of the neighborhood, but they don't, because none of them have driveways. Every house in LaGrange has a driveway, and these are like built in the field or something. I mean, they don't have a driveway. They do look different. So that part's a little, I'm having trouble wrapping my head around that. So the discussion with regard to the rear garage will be an interesting one, especially with somebody with a little more skills and knowledge than I do, Dave. Question with regard to Road A, the width of that versus the others. Is that an issue, a risk? Are we comfortable with these roads so that you can get your equipment around there should you need to, Don?
Originally, we were given, am I correct, at 19 feet?
24-foot drive. The 19 is for the access on the 9th specifically. The internal roadways are 24-foot width, and the Road A that goes out to Bluff is larger. We have also done what we call an auto turn, which shows that we can turn and maneuver all of the emergency vehicles through the site based on the pavement sections that you see.
And I've taken the 19-foot measurement, existing apartment complex, which matches that. We also have some streets on the northeast section of town that are pretty close to the 19-foot wide, right into 20 to 22. So we're there. We're okay, though.
Okay. With regard to the road going out on the 9th Avenue, that's meant to be a two-way road, is that correct? Okay. It would be, I can't help but notice whoever poor Lot 6 is across the street, your headlights are right into their home. It would be kind of neat if we could move this someplace where headlights aren't going to, they were between houses, and I don't know how accurate the depiction on the west side is, but maybe between 5 and 6 or something, which also lines up with one of your roads there, but in a fashion so that every car that pulls up there at night or early morning isn't shining their lights into some poor guy's house who used to enjoy quiet and dark enjoyment. Just a thought with regard to that. Go ahead, Matt.
Driveway that's out there. So if you happen to be on site, there's an existing driveway that serves a little ranch house on the Mason's piece. This location is literally just a tad to the north of that existing drive. So as you pull out of this subdivision, this proposed road, the headlights are kind of aimed at a tree across the street, or I should say maybe just to the side of the tree. But it's in a location very similar to an existing driveway right now.
Yeah, but there was an existing driveway that didn't have 140 plus people in it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that this, but I'm just telling you where the location is. And that side of the house across the street, you pretty much have a tree, a little space before you hit the driveway. So as the cars, would be coming out, it really kind of shines to the side of the entrance of that house.
Okay, all right.
So it's not through the family room window.
That was my fear, so thank you for that thoughtfulness. I did have another question. I can't help but notice some of your elevations where the right side of the homes, now this is a minor part of this, but the right side of the homes, for a couple of them, only have like 1 or 2 windows. Well, the right side is the south side, based on how these are situated, and it's kind of a shame to lose the sun on a side of the house. I mean, one of them has 2 windows in the entire side of the house, and it looks kind of strange. I don't think I would like my house to look like that, but I'm not buying these.
Yeah, on our homes, we do have some optional windows that are really dependent on what somebody wants, that specific room. For instance, there's a dining room that has optional windows. If you don't want to have a furniture wall, you could option those windows. Another thing to take a look at is if you look at the plan where those single-family lots are, there's the homes are flipped in some of the lots.
Mhm.
So what you see as the right or the left is not always the south side. We have flipped the location of those garages, which would then flip the floor plans of those homes.
I
So
see.
it flips back and forth.
Okay. Yeah, your left side has way more windows than the right on you must have a right-handed architect doing this thing or something. So, just one last comment, and it's one that I've made before. Charity will not be shocked to hear this from me, and I alluded to it during my summary. But that is, with regard to this overall project, I'm very impressed with it. I'm really thrilled to see this lot, this piece of property put to productive use. I, like Tom, admired the job and the service that the Masons did for so many years, but that's history. And putting this into productive use has taken some creativity, and I'm really pleased with that. With that said, and I like the townhomes. I think there's a need for that kind of a product here. These seem to be very high quality. MI's reputation is of that, and so I'm very pleased with that. What concerns me the most are the single-family homes. You're building all of these single-family homes on conforming lots, the same size lot as almost everybody else in LaGrange. And while I know as part of a planned development, we have the authority to grant variances for that, I'm hard-pressed to tell the guy across the street and up the block that asked for a variance to do what they wanted to do, to slightly more lot coverage, and told them no. I'm hard-pressed to come up with a reason why this should be a yes. These are scraped lots. They're conforming, and while we could approve them, I don't understand why we should approve them. These lots have, arguably fewer issues because they're scraped than most people that buy a house and tear it down or do a renovation. And so I'd love to see these houses developed without almost any variance. The variances I don't have a problem with is what we talked about before, using because you're going to scrape the whole place and change the grade. I agree it's impractical to try to use that. So I'm fine with that. The double frontage thing, I'm fine with that. That makes sense if in fact we go with these rear garages. But the side yards, the rear yards, the building coverage, I can't tell a neighbor why I didn't do it for them if I do it for you. Especially since when the ZBA, when the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Plan Commission meet, they have requirements that include things like not self-created. Well, this is entirely self-created. Not solely for the purpose of improving value. This is for only that purpose. We have several criteria that they have to fulfill or they cannot approve those. And again, going back to this, I know that we could, but for the single family homes here, I'm hard pressed to come up with why we should. Thank you.
Trustee Kukler?
I'm actually following right up on what Bill was talking about, but taking a little bit of different tact, but same idea, I think. My concern is with this paragraph. After the conclusion of the public testimony and discussion, the Plan Commission deliberated and voted to recommend the Village Board approve the proposed development subject to the following 6 conditions. Conditions listed, then the paragraph that said, but the developer is not going to follow all those 6 conditions. So I'm reading that as saying the Plan Commission did not approve this because you won't hit the things that they said. And therefore, it's coming to us as an unapproved from the Plan Commission as opposed to something being approved by the Plan Commission. And it's going to be difficult for me to support something that the Plan Commission doesn't support. So I don't know if the answer is to go back to the Plan Commission to get their support or what the answer is, but as it's written right now, I have difficulty saying the Plan Commission, thanks, but I'm not going to follow your direction.
Why don't I jump in here? And one of the useful things for staff as we kind of exit a meeting like this is to give direction. And so there are a couple of open-ended questions. Now, I looked at the materials and have followed the process very closely. The Plan Commission approved this. They did leave those 6 things for further investigation and deliberation by us. So they have voted affirmatively aye, and so we have arrived to the Village Board, and there are a few the 6 things that you mentioned and other things that we've mentioned anew tonight. So what I want to do first of all is to ask either Charity or Mark or Andre or anybody on staff other open-ended questions that, you know, whether it was a range of percentage that you posed in our packet that we might not have gotten to tonight, that you want us to either tonight get back to you or, you know, by the end of the week. I think we covered most of them in our debate, and Matt, you did a great job. Board, you did a great job. Oh, and then Lou has a question, Trustee Gale. But that would be some things that we want to get from you. But before I do that, Trustee Gale, did you have a question or comment?
Well, actually, it dovetails well with what you were just saying. So I think one of the sort of open questions, and maybe Matt knows, or maybe you know, Charity, about those houses on the west side of 9th, what lot sizes, what square footage are those houses? Do any of them have lot coverage or building coverage areas, are they all within the, within the requirements of our zoning code?
So the lot sizes are very comparable to what MI Homes has proposed. They're 50-foot wide lots instead of 51 feet. At the last public hearing, MI Homes presented testimony relative to some analysis that they did on the building and lot coverage for those homes, so I'll leave that to Matt to address that.
Yeah, Matt, could you speak to that? And Matt, thanks as well, along with everybody else. Thanks for coming out. Great presentation. Take your time.
West side of 9th, and the existing homes kind of have an opposite impact as to what you're seeing here. Of the 13 homes, 7 of them exceeded your lot coverage. We don't exceed the lot coverage or ask for any sort of variation on that. The building coverage being at 30%, of those 13 homes, there was one of the homes that we believe exceeded that lot coverage of 30%. The rest of them met it. So a lot of it is based on having a detached garage versus an attached garage, and yeah, hopefully that answered what you were.
It does, and I wanted to echo the other comments as well, that I think consistency is one of the things we like to look. I guess I don't want to speak for everybody. I like to see in terms of building coverage, lot coverage. Being able to say to someone, well, we gave MI Homes this, these variances, but you can't have one. And at least I'll speak for myself. I think I'm probably one of the most lenient with respect to the variances, but I'd like to see the consistency there with respect to it. So, and then I did want to turn to parking and roads real quick too. How many extra spots, like parking spots, dedicated spots, will be in the whole development? Not just, and I'm not mean like not garages, not their driveways, but like extra, because I think you had some extra spaces in there, right?
Yeah.
So we had 20 additional off-street guest spots. And then there's another 10 spaces designated on our main entrance. So you have an additional 30 above and beyond the 2-car garages and then the driveways.
Okay, great. That was all I had. Thanks.
Can you point, the one set are obvious. Can you, Matt, just tell us where those are? Are those the white spaces around the townhomes, or? Okay, so that's like visitor parking and whatnot, right?
And how many spots are there? That's 4 spots, or
And
that's
that,
1 spot?
no, that's one spot with multiple spots, with multiple,
Numerous locations, 20 total parking spots,
gotcha,
Each of those are about 5 spots?
give or take, yeah.
Roughly, yeah.
gotcha, thank you.
So Charity and Andre and Mark, again, and to Trustee Kukler's good point, we have the 6 items here the Plan Commission deliberated, voted to recommend Village Board approve. We'll go through those in a minute just to make sure we're covered. But please.
Yes, thank you. So, as was stated in the presentation, we've discussed condition 1, which relates to the proposed single-family homes and the maximum building coverage. The applicant has expressed every intention of complying with the engineering and landscaping and anti-monotony requirements, as well as the mid-block access as recommended by the Plan Commission. So that covers items 2 through 5, unless the trustees have further comment on those topics. The last is really condition 6, which is that the percentage of the townhome units that are allowed to be leased should be restricted in some manner. Staff has reached out with our residential real estate consultant, Tracy Cross and Associates, who we've used for various different projects in the past. They initially are suggesting the village board consider a leasing restriction somewhere in the range of 15 to 30% of the townhome units, and that would range anywhere from 9 to 17 units. So if the trustees have Any thoughts on that, either tonight or sometime this week? We would appreciate that as we continue to look in what that appropriate leasing restriction may be.
And Charity, do you request an exact number, or do you request a range, albeit a narrower one than 15 to 30?
We will need to set an exact limit
Okay.
for the purposes of the ordinance.
So board, if you could think that through, deliberate that either now or over the week so that we can give some direction on that.
Does it matter to the developer?
Good question.
Don't have this, or I should say, this isn't a rule to restrict some sort of investor coming in. It really is the homeowner right to actually rent their home if they ever need to. So, well, we've done this in other locations, and we typically would have it at 30%. If you wanted something less than 30%, it's not that big of a deal to us.
But that gets enacted usually with an HOA
Correct.
covenant, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there a way in the process, I'm not even sure who to ask, to not have all of them spaced together, maybe spread out? Like, because you could see somebody buying, one whole building and then renting out the whole building, which I think is what we'd want to avoid. We'd want them spread out, I would think.
Yeah,
Is that-
typically this is it. There isn't something that talks about it. And again, this isn't. There's no intentions to sell to investors up front. That I don't know that at this price point that you're going to have a ton of investors that are going to come in to buy this as a rental property. So what we would want to leave that open so that that homeowner, if he ever needs to rent it, there isn't a restriction on where he can or can't.
Andre or Mark Birkland?
I would just add that because of the public and private infrastructure that's being built, the nature of the two products and the association, the covenant to allow public access to the walkways, all of that put together will require some other documentation as the village has done with other developments. There'll be a development agreement. The village will want to work with the developer on the project declaration or covenants and restrictions. There'll be easements and on the property, and as we did recently with the Opus development, we may develop and bring to you for consideration the need for a special service area in order to assure that the privately maintained infrastructure is properly maintained, and if it isn't, the village has a means by which to step in and make sure that it becomes that. We had two special service areas for two different reasons in the Opus development. This one would be more focused on pure infrastructure. So those things are pending and will come through negotiations with the applicant back to the Board of Trustees as a package.
Okay. Andre, other outstanding questions?
No, Mr. President.
Okay. Very good. So we have a couple of to-dos, and again, I think we have some clarity on that, and I would think by the end of the week, we would have a line of sight as to whether we reassemble and come back and take this up under current business with the intention of making it an action item. So let's see how some of these questions go. Matt, thank you. You've been through the Plan Commission. I want to thank the residents that are here and on television that have placed their hands on this. So you've been through this before. A good village board likes to take their own chunks out of things, even though lots of hands have been on this. And so we're gonna do that, and not because, as Trustee Holder said, we're not impressed. We are. These are long-term decisions that we want to make right, and it's our intention to do the project. So we're going to push it. We're going to work our best, and if things come back and give our trustees cardiac arrest or you, then we'll deal with that when we come to it, and we'll be timely about it. Trustee McCarty, please.
I'm wondering, how do we, are we assuming that you want to hear in writing our restrictions, or do you want to go run down quickly what we're going to accept or not accept, so he has a temperature of the board? I mean,
You
heard
can,
from
you
two.
can do that to provide any direction you wish. When we come back and reassemble, we are going to, convene. So when you're providing your feedback, you're not replying to the board. You're having your own discussions, so we stay on our good
No,
record.
I was talking about right now.
Fine.
We heard from trustees Holder and Kukler. I'd like to echo, and I'll just keep it short. I feel exactly the same way as trustee Holder. No variances on the single family.
Define that.
You're asking basically for 3 variances on the single family for side yards, rear yard, and coverage. I don't believe any of those are justifiable. There's flexibility on the rear yard because it's unique, but side yard and coverage, I don't see me moving on those.
What about the discussion with the detached garage? Does that change anything?
Well, I think it, as you pointed out, it might fix a few things, and it might make it. I mean, I think it's definitely worth looking at, because I think that would quickly fix the backyard issue and the coverage issue.
Okay. Trustee Gale.
I'd like to echo too. I'm on the same page as, I guess, McCarty, Holder, and Kukler as well. I'd like to see no variances, so we can be consistent with our other residents.
All right, so you will engage with each other on that. Any other, when I mean each other, I mean staff and you all, and then they'll be in touch with us.
Understood.
And we'll see what works and what doesn't, and we'll have that discussion.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thanks a lot.
Any other comments under current business to the board? Mark, do you have what you need, Birkeland? Again, good discussion. Thank you very much. We have no other current business tonight, trustees. Under item 7 on our agenda, we do have comments on any items that are not on our agenda this evening. Public comments not on our agenda. Seeing none, item 8, trustee comments. Trustee comments this evening. Trustee McCarty.
Quick one, I'd like to echo the compliments to the Public Works and to the staff and to the police department for braving through the cold. Boy, I put my foot out to get a newspaper, and that was enough. Thank you very much. And thanks also, Don, for 30 years.
Thanks, Trustee McCarty. Any other trustee comments? All right, we have no items for closed session this evening under item 9. Item 10 would seek a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
And all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned until 7:30, February 25th. Thank you.